Hey friends, welcome to the Perfect Place Put a Practice podcast. I'm your host, Mike Green. And today we're going to do something a little different. We've got an excerpt from a recent webinar that we did titled Data to Dollars. It was focused towards private practice owners, specifically ones that are building new practices, that have acquired practices from previous doctors, but is very relevant to you doctors that are buying your first practice as well. So enjoy Data to Dollars. Hopefully it's not too distracting with the audio changes, but here you go, Data to Dollars.
Okay, data to dollars. So this is a framework that doctors that we work with, I would say every week, frankly. We talk to doctors who are in this framework of, I'm going to open my practice and I am going to just allow whatever happens, happens. Meaning that I'm just going to flip the open sign over in the window and hope for the best. I always give the example of these doctors that will go and they'll hire a direct mail company, and the direct mail company will get them a big list of names and shoot them a nice looking flyer or brochure or postcard or something, and they'll send it out. And so many times doctors will be in a situation where they're just waiting by the phone. Matter of fact, I'll never forget, I was in a client's office, won't tell you where, I don't want to embarrass them, but they had hired me for a full day consultation. And in this consultation, it was like a Thursday, right? And so I was with them for 6 hours, and we went through analytics and we went through data, we went through all these different things. And at the end of the day, they said, "Oh, so what do you think is the problem?" And I said, the problem is we've been sitting here for 6 hours, and that phone has rang 2 times. And you've done the mailers, you've done the ads, you've done the things, but none of that stuff was based on data. It was just based on either your gut feeling of what might work in that area, or it was based on what that marketing company told you. And I hate to break it to them, I hate to break it to you, that marketing companies are liars a lot of times, and they want to make that sale, and once they make that sale, they're done. And so where do you want to be in your practice? What impact do you want to have? And do you want to make your decisions, especially marketing decisions, based on data? Now, it doesn't matter if you're a dentist or a veterinarian or an optometrist or a physical therapist, or any business. You have to make, especially when you're spending money on something, you have to base it on data. And so today we're going to talk about the framework of data to dollars and try to get an understanding of how, number one, how we get the data, and how we can comb through the data and find the relevant data. And so, for example, at Dr. Demographics, we're a data company, and so we provide data to our clients. And so they'll typically hire us to do a viability study on a location, or they'll hire us to look at a broad area. We'll give them a truckload of data, and that data is all really interesting, but only a percentage of it is actually actionable. And of course, as a data company, if we're doing a viability study, especially if it's for a bank, if you're trying to get a loan, you want to have all the data. But that is why we do an after report consultation, to help you understand which of that data is actually even relevant to you making a decision, making the right decision for your practice. So on average, according to the ADA, 18% higher annual revenue comes from practices that make their decisions based on data. Now, I don't know how they get that percentage, but I would say that percentage is actually low. I've seen much greater success with practices who put into play actionable data for their practice, and then can translate to, okay, I know this about these people or that about these people, and so because of that, I'm going to run this marketing campaign or that marketing campaign. That is so important. And so I really can't underscore the importance of data. As a matter of fact, as I think back, of My time when I joined Dr. Demographics over 10 years ago, when I joined Scott McDonald, I was a marketer, and I was helping all kinds of businesses, and I was very data driven. And I didn't play well with most marketing companies because their decisions were not based on data. They were based on what they were going to be able to sell the most of the next month, and I thought that was BS. And so I joined Scott McDonald at Dr. Demographics because I liked the data, and I knew that we could put some marketing methods in place to help you practice owners be more successful. So let's talk about that. Let's go first to step number one, collecting the right data. So really, it isn't really that complicated. We offer a very low price demographic data report for a few $100s. You're going to be able to have more data and actionable data than you ever knew. Now, that's demographic data. You're going to have internal data as well, right? That's going to come from usually your practice management software. So that's going to be your Dentrix, your EagleSoft, whatever it is that you're using in your practice is going to have a tremendous amount of data. And so what you want to do is combine those two data sources. Because what we find is that a lot of times practices will have internal data, or maybe even a better example is they buy a practice and they take that practice's data and they make all their future decisions based on the data. Problem is, a lot of times when a doctor buys a practice, they're buying a practice that is aging out. And so they maybe were hitting it hard 10, 15, 20 years ago with the data, but they didn't update what their methods. They weren't going after new prospects, and so the neighborhood around them may have changed dramatically, but they're making decisions on old data, and so that's just not going to work. It's not smart to do it that way. It certainly is not successful to do it that way, and so it's important that you look at not only the internal data that you have as a practice, but also you're looking at the data that is external. What's happening in your neighborhood right now? What is the biggest moving factors that's driving people to move to your area? What are they looking for? Are they into technology? Are they into reputation? Are they into price, just whoever's cheapest? That's the kind of data that becomes very important. And so step two in that process, and I know I'm going a million miles an hour here, but we only have so much time for this presentation. The step two in that process is actually analyzing that data. So when you analyze the data, it then tells you a story and a pattern and a path that if you know what to look for, you can then craft a marketing message that's going to match that path really, really well for what you're going after. So if you're looking for a practice that's going to be driven and built and created in Minneapolis, and right now a lot of crazy things are happening in Minneapolis, and you're looking to build a practice in Southern California, and dramatically different things are happening in Southern California, and you're looking to build a practice in Raleigh, dramatically different things are happening in Raleigh. It's data, right? But if you're looking at the analysis of the data, especially with somebody that can help you walk that through, you can say, oh, okay, Minneapolis has some major political things that are happening, and so that's going to impact business, that's going to impact the growth in the area. Are people going to be moving to an area like Minneapolis because maybe they do or they don't want to get into a polarizing situation? Or are you that practice owner in Southern California and people are moving there for lifestyle, and all of a sudden people are moving back to California, whereas for the last 10 years they've been moving away, and they're moving there because of lifestyle, because they made great money during COVID, and so now they want to live by the beach and they want that lifestyle? Or are you the practice owner that's going to build in Raleigh, and Raleigh has massive businesses moving in, and the technology sector and the medical sector is huge, and so are you going to capitalize on those prospects that are happening in that area? All of those things become extremely important when you're starting to look at the data. And so that's going to include your Google Analytics. That's going to include your patient demographics as they're walking through the door. That's going to include the economic data indicators that are happening for your community. And it's going to you're going to look at the general demographics for the area. So if you take all that with somebody that knows what they're doing and help you analyze what that data is and how it can be impactful, now you can start writing a story of, I'm going to open up that practice in Raleigh because I like to work with the tech-savvy young families that are making great money and have very stable jobs, because I know they're going to have dental insurance, and I know they have kids that are definitely going to need braces, and so I'm going to go after that market. That's how you take that data into action in a very, very high level way. And so step 3 then is to apply that data to actually make more money. And there's really kind of 3 different aspects of doing that. Number 1 is marketing. So as you develop and get the answers from that data, you're going to be able to know whether you need to market cosmetic or high end or low end or budget or coupon or loyalty or reputation. That is going to tell that story of what those people want in the long term. The second thing it's going to help you do is set your services and your pricing. So many times I've talked to doctors who I say, what kind of practice are you going to build? And they say this or that, this or this and this. But that story that they have created does not match the demographics that they're moving to. And so that creates a big problem. And so if you're not going to match, if you have a set, this is going to be my practice philosophy, this is exactly who I want to treat, and there's nobody in your community that would match that, you're going to have a problem. You're going to spend a ton of money and be very disappointed for a very long time because those 2 things are not matching up. And so if you can match those 2 things up and make sure that, of course, you're going to build your practice however you want to build it, but also that you're going to be in a situation where you're going to say, okay, this is what the community is telling me, this is how I'm going to respond to the community, and this is how I'm going to deploy a practice philosophy that's going to match those people. The third thing is your inventory and operations. So often I've seen practices that are sabotaged by the wrong staff. They've got somebody on their staff that does not treat people well. And you're in an area where reputation is the most important thing. And so guess what happens with that practice? They go down, down, down. And it's sad to see, because it's definitely something that they could avoid if, again, they match their demographics with the practice philosophy, especially their hiring philosophy. And that's not just attitude. Oftentimes that's cultural, that's racial in some cases, that's religious tradition in some cases. You've got to make sure that you are, again, agnostic when you're looking at your data, so that you can make good decisions without being influenced by what it is that the norms that you live your life by. Okay, the next factor is making sure that you're finding some quick wins. So I usually tell doctors that let's look at all this data and let's find 2 or 3 key metrics that are going to work really well for your practice, that we know they're going to have really, really quick results. And so typically we'll look at a factor that's just low-hanging fruit, and we'll develop a marketing campaign that's going to work specifically for those people. Now, again, these are my clients that I go and spend a day at their practice, and so it's hard to communicate that in this kind of a format. But likely, there's a low-hanging fruit piece for you in your practice that you're missing out on because you didn't look at the data. So, for example, you might find that soccer moms are a really prominent psychographic segment in your particular area. And so what type of marketing plan would you think would work for them? A soccer mom. Yeah, an hour strategy. That's great. An hour strategy would be one of the things that would work really well for the soccer moms. Why? Because they're crazy busy, right? What's something else? An engaging patient waiting room, absolutely. So if you've got something that they're going to be entertained when soccer mom's up and she's trying to fill out paperwork and she's got little Bobby that she's trying to get in to see the dentist and the other kids are in tow, yeah, make sure that you're entertaining those kids and they're staying active in your waiting room, that it's not just some sterile looking medical something that they, got just a few magazines. Those kids are going to be bored to death. And so if you can match your demographic outlook or your data with your strategy, now you're starting to use a few key metrics. What's another one? What's one that would be a direct marketing approach? Yeah, let's take direct mail. I know a lot of you use direct mail, and that's totally fine. So direct mail is one of those pieces that can create some good energy in a particular area if you've said the right thing. So I've got a doctor in California that did this so beautifully. He knew that he had a really big Hispanic population, which is very common in California. And so every piece of direct mail that he did one side English, one side Spanish. Or if he knew that he was just sending the direct mail piece just to a Hispanic neighborhood, it was just Spanish. His website, you could click a button and it translated everything into Spanish. Not like the Google Translate where half the stuff doesn't make any sense, but they took the time to go through and make sure that everything was translated correctly. The videos changed to Hispanic testimonials and families. That's the kind of ways that you can use key data points to be successful in the way that you manage your practice. Now, this is just the surface level. There's a million things that you can do, and the really interesting thing is it's going to be different from practice A to practice B to practice C. That's why it's so important that you A, know the data, B, know what to do with the data, and C, find those small wins that you can start building upon so you're developing a practice that is data-driven into dollars rather than just hopes and prayers. Oh my gosh, please let that phone ring. Please let that phone ring. Don't let that be you. It doesn't have to be you. You can be much more successful. Now, those reports can be found really easily on drdemographics.com. I would recommend if you have a location, do the site viability report. That one is going to give you a truckload of data. And then we always offer an after report consultation over the phone or through Zoom to help you go through that data, analyze it, and know exactly what to do with it.